in Goa, there was a conference called Frame, and the topic of that conference was to draw. It was about drawing, and there were many speakers from all over the world actually, and all around India, who came to speak, and Robert was one of them. And I thought it would be really nice to have him share what he spoke that day with us. So this is the first of a series of of talks that we're going to do with speakers from that conference. We've got 5 more lined up, and I will be sharing the links to those talks when they're ready. Robert is an architect, lived originally from the US, has lived and worked in India for the last almost 20 years, I would say, 20 plus years, 16 years in Mumbai. And while he was in Mumbai, he worked with RMA Architects for many years, was a principal architect towards the end of his tenure there, and worked on projects of various types and of various scales. In his time there, he spent many hours, days, months searching the used bookstores of Mumbai, and got exposed to all the old rare books that city has about its history, its culture. And now, and during that time, Robert wrote a book called Bombay Imagined, which was about it's a catalog compilation of projects of what the city could be, of many historic projects which were proposed for the city, and many imaginary projects which Robert also came up with. And then through the process of the book, came up with new renderings and drawings of what those projects could have been like. So Bombay Imagined, the first edition is now sold out, and hopefully there will be another edition coming out soon. Robert is now in private practice in Bangalore since 2023, where he moved. And as you can see behind him, he's sitting in his new studio called Herbs Indus Library and Studio on a piece of land in Bangalore, which is a piece of architecture, a library, a house, a studio, a place for gathering, with a garden and with a newly built live well. I don't know what you call it, but it's an open air well with water that collects from the roof and from the rain, and a garden attached to it. So I'll leave it up to you, Robert. Thanks for being with us.
Yep. Thanks, Kushu. Thanks very much. Okay, I'm always a nervous speaker, like always, and especially more so now because my mom and grandma are on this call. So yeah, very nerve-wracking, but really glad. Thanks for getting up so early for that, for this talk. Thanks to everyone who's made time today. I think it's a nice, intimate group. I'm very excited. I'm just going to share my screen. And thanks, Kushu, for making this happen. Kushu's he's like this. He just does interesting things and gives other people the spotlight. So really kind of countercultural that way. Okay, 1 minute. Okay. Can you see a white screen, everyone? Yeah?
Yeah.
Actually, 1 second. I'm not happy with this. I want to get rid of the big band, Tina. For some reason, it's
Where?
I want to consolidate the photos into one small thing. 1 second. Yeah, okay, I think I got it. Yeah. Okay, we're good. Okay, you can see a white screen?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So yeah, as Kushu said, my name's Robert Stevens. This is where I grew up. This is Somerville, South Carolina. My mother's in this house right now, joining us on this call. And in 2007, I moved here to Mumbai, where, as Kushu mentioned, I worked for about 16 years as an architect. And although we were in Mumbai, much of our work was outside of the city, which meant we traveled quite a bit. And whenever we would land, often there would be someone with a placard, with a sign to kind of capture us. So this was Robert Stefan, had these really interesting spellings, Robert Stefans, Rupert Steppens. And one of the things I noticed as people started handwriting these placards, the names became more creative. Not just the spelling, Mr. Robart, but also the font, the way the name was made, right? These were drawings, basically, and they were expressions, they were searches for this person, Mr. Robert, Mr. Robot. So I love these names. But my favorite name had nothing to do with flying or placards. It was this receipt, Robert Bhai. This was a receipt for 35 coffee. So that's the last thing you need to know about me. I love coffee. This receipt was it was 2 days worth of coffee, yeah, for Robert Bai. In 1998, in this was my high school, Stratford High. In this classroom, I did my first drawing. Now, I'd been sketching, of course, as a younger kid, but ninth grade, I had my first like really intense experience of drawing, and it was a blind contour. Now, that is an observational drawing technique where you focus solely on the subject's contours and shapes without looking at your paper as you draw, maintaining a continuous line and slow, steady movement between your eyes and the pen or pencil, right? So you're only laser focused on the object, whatever you're drawing in front of you, not focused on your paper. An American artist, Kimon Nicolaides, said this in 1941 about blind contours. This exercise should be done slowly, searchingly, sensitively. Take your time. Do not be too impatient or too quick, right? So this is my first experience with really intense experience with drawing. Ninth grade, we're in this art classroom. There's a still life in front of us, and our teacher says, make a blind contour of the still life. So every day we focus on just a small portion. Day one was some of these leaves in the top of this pot, then the vase below it. Day 2 and 3, then 4 and 5, we're drawing just leaves of another part of the still life. Then we're drawing the pot, we're capturing how light falls on the pot, and really just looking with laser focus at each section. And then after about 2 weeks, this was the final piece. And I stepped back and I just said, wow, like amazing, right? This is the power of blind contour. You never see the big picture. You're just working on bits, trusting what your eyes see can translate onto the paper. My art teacher, Miss Boston, saw this, and after 2 weeks, she said, "You're an artist." And it was really nice. And what we learned in that experience was drawing as a means to communicate light and shadow and form, right? Really fundamental qualities of drawing. 2002, 4 years later, I go to Virginia Tech, the School of Architecture, and this is our studio. This was my second year studio in 2003. One of the things you'll notice about this image, there's not one laptop or computer in sight, right? Amazing. Not because the school's anti-computer. It's just in 2003, the laptop had not taken over studio culture yet. Within 3 years, every desk had a laptop, but at this point, they were not in studio yet. You see, there's a scientific calculator, 2 rolls of film. Oh, Tina, Bonnie's meowing for food, huh? If you can help, sorry. You can see my sketchbook. So this is our second year. First year of architecture school is, of course, all abstract practices, but second year, our teacher, Jay Stokol, really my favorite teacher of all time, he gave us a project, and it was a house. And it was to be a house for Henry David Thoreau in Philadelphia, right? Henry David Thoreau, of course, was an environmentalist, a naturalist, And he wrote this book, amongst others, this book called Walden, all about his experiences living by a lake in Massachusetts. And the challenge was, how do you design a house for someone whom you've never met? So you have to get to know your client, right? So I started reading his writings on reading, would underline about half the book. I made notes as went through his writings. Again, we're trying to get to know him. We're trying to think at the same time, what would a house for Henry David Thoreau look like? This was a note I made. There should be only one stair. You must go outside, then turn and enter the study. So the idea that as Thoreau moves through his house, he should experience the natural world to access his study and not be completely indoors all the time. But this was my favorite line where he writes this. I wanted to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life, to live so sturdily and Spartan-like as to put to rout all that was not life, right? What a brief. I'm still waiting for a client to walk into our studio here and give a brief like this. Powerful. So the challenge of this second year studio was what Jay Stokol, the challenge he gave was, here's a text written by this person whom you will never meet. Your challenge now is to interpret that text to create a drawing, to create a design, right? The challenge was to speculate, right? What would a house for this person look like? So I developed this design scheme. This is the entry door from Philadelphia, the city. And the idea was you enter and you enter into a courtyard. There's a small footprint. The house is multi-levels so that you can yet have space for earth. Inside the ground floor, I'd imagine maybe there's like a geological artifact because we knew Thoreau is really connected to the earth, to the past. The first floor bedroom, there would be a study desk, maybe opposite the study desk. I thought there could be a trilobite, an ancient fossil embossed in the concrete. There would, of course, be bookshelves. And then the top floor was to be his primary study, overlooking a terrace garden. But the idea was you would have to go outside into that courtyard to go up, right? So those principles we saw in the book. And then collectively, we said, what if this space, right, connecting with the earth, you feel the layers of the ground beneath, and that layering continues in the walls through pigmented concrete, right? So these are ideas. And what we learned from this speculation was, yes, architecture, or yes, drawing conveys light and shadow form, but it also has the power to tell a narrative, right? To tell who's living in this space. And it does that through volume and material. So we're condensing these learnings over time. Now, again, I grew up here in a suburb outside of a city. Third year of college, I go on what's called Chicago Studio. It's my first time experiencing a mega city, basically, and I loved it. I started experiencing streets at scales I had never seen before, and I started drawing these street sections. And not only were the streets themselves unique, but they had different communities within Chicago. This was Chinatown. This was Little India. And you can see this car. There's actually a blind contour, right? A car doesn't look this exactly like this, right? It's a blind contour. So we're overlapping these learnings through time. This is another like Little South Asia street. And in 2006, I made my first visit to Mumbai. I moved there 1 year later to work. And every weekend after, a really intense work week, I would roam the streets and I would just walk. And I loved it. These were, again, film images. And just to date this a bit, you can see this gentleman's bell bottoms. Yeah, so it's kind of proof that's the early 2000s. And there was this itch. So I'm practicing working on computers a lot, but I still had this itch to use my hands to draw, right? Much like those street sections from Chicago. So in 2009, I went through this spell where I would draw street sections. This was Abdul Rahman Street in the old city. This is Mumbai Devi Mandir in central Mumbai. The police shut me down on this one halfway. These drawings are big, so I had a big plywood canvas with paper on it, and it looked very suspicious. So that got shut down halfway. This is Banganga Tank. I love the section where you see just different things in life, tulsi plant, small mandirs. And then this is Rifaya Masjid. in Chor Bazaar, also still 2009. And when I'm looking back at this after about 15, 16 years, what I love is the level of detail. You see the water tank, it's half full. I realized why I like this so much because there was a chai and coffee stall here, right? I love coffee. And often because it was so hot, when we'd be out on the street, any space with this kind of Shamiana covering was attractive. I would often find respite there. And when there's coffee and chai, even better. So I would roam the streets, make these drawings, just roam for years on end. And many of these wanderings ended here at Flora Fountain in South Mumbai. And this was a fabulous space, one of the best places on earth because it's all used books, right? This is an image from about 2 weeks ago. It's still very much alive, yet has the shamiana that provides respite from the heat and rain. Um, and slowly over the course of 18 years, we've evolved this library. Fortunately, a lot of the books that pass through Flora Fountain are Mumbai specific. And I would collect a lot of these books through time. Many of them had drawings within. This was a design for a municipal office. This was JJ School of Art. This was a police court design. Um, and a lot, just for whatever reason, a lot of these drawings and books, they seem to have this similar thread that much of what was within went unbuilt, right? They were unrealized. And that fascinated me. So for 3, 4 years, I was just collecting these ideas, these unbuilt ideas. I thought this would be really interesting as a book one day. And then this happened. Tina, my wife, we became pregnant. And when this happened, we decided two things. One, we wanted to have a home birth and we wanted to have a water birth. So we did that. This was the kiddie pool we set up for the home birth and water birth. On May 18, 2016, Tina went into labor. And around noon or so, we get a knock on our door. Tina's in labor. There's a knock on the door. I open, and our security guard from downstairs, he says, and no joke, he says to me, साहब आज 5 बजे से कल सुबह 7 बजे पानी नहीं मिलेगा. Right? From today 5 p.m. till tomorrow 7 a.m., there will be no water at all, 100% water cut. And I panicked because we were supposed to have a water birth. So I started filling this pool as quickly as I could. I never appreciated water so much in my life. Um, Labor progressed, and by that evening, our son Kai was born. But what I learned from this is water, we often take it for granted. It is the enabler of life. It's a really, really powerful natural resource, essential part of life in cities. And the birth of Kai was great. It not only made me slightly more playful as a person, but it also expanded my imagination of what makes the city. So I started going back to many of these drawings I had found. This is a map from 1852. Everything you see in black in this image is water, right? Isn't it amazing? Bombay is a city of water. It's a city of a moat, of wells, of tanks. They're everywhere. And in 1840s, 1850s, there's a couple of back-to-back famines. There's panic. There's no water, right? And water is the enabler. Without water, life does not continue. So Henry Conybeare, an engineer who was based in the city at the time, he's given this brief, help solve this famine. So he looks around, sees all these tanks with water, but the water's polluted. And he says, let's sink filtering wells into each of these tanks. They'd be decentralized throughout the city. Everyone would have access. These are the filtering well walls he proposed. And the idea was individuals could draw water from these depths while the tank adjacent would be untouched. And that was great in his imagination because tanks were not only ecological, helping to supply the well, but they were also cultural and for festival use. Right? So they had these multiple meanings. Of course, that didn't happen. By and large, the tanks and wells were all closed. Powai Lake was made, Vihar Lake was made, and all of a sudden, the water source of the city moved far away, often out of sight. and these are now not in use, and the sources are even further away. But what Conaber identified and what he advocated for is that water is culture, right? And infrastructure. It's not just one thing. 1720, 300 years, 305 years ago, roughly, there's another plan called the Great Channel. And this was proposed again by a city resident, Captain Johnson. And the city at the time is roughly like this. It's a number of islands separated at high tide. And there's this push to reclaim the entire city, to fill it in with earth, to create retaining walls and fill it in. And he says, no, there's another option. And his idea is to create a channel, to keep a gap between the southern and northern part of this future city, and to allow the sea to pass through this channel, right? To allow the rainwater to percolate into it. Now, all we had was text. We had his description of this idea. And then we said, what if we translate that text into a drawing, right? What if we speculate? And all of a sudden, these learnings from Thoreau from second year start filtering their way into Bombay's unbuilt history. So we took the text, I made this sketch of how I thought it would have looked, and then we scientifically, using maps and 3D modeling tools, created this image with Aniket Umari and Fawaz Khan. This is Haji Ali for reference, Mazgaon at the background. And in between was the Great Channel, right? This was to absorb high tide, the intense sea influx, as well as capture monsoon rains to prevent the city from flooding. Of course, this did not happen. Hornby Vellard was built, a retaining wall was made all around the island. This is what it looks like roughly today. That's the Vellard. And it's no surprise, every monsoon, this is what happens in central Mumbai, right? It is a consequence of topography. But I like to think if Captain Johnson's scheme had been successful, the city might have looked like this. There might have been more channels cut up and down the island, and it would have become like an Oriental Venice. And this idea of an Oriental Venice, this was also advocated by this gentleman, Patrick Geddes. He was in Bombay from 1914 to 1924. And he looked at the city at the time and said, the race course, what we know as the race course, it's the lowest part of the island. That's the perfect spot for a rainwater retention pond. So let's speculate on this. What if we created this still reflective lake for absorbing the rains? With Haji Ali in the background again, this is what it might have looked like. And the crazy thing about Bombay, ideas repeat. They stack one on top of the other through time because until the challenge goes away, solutions will keep reoccurring. The same idea for this rainwater retention pond was proposed in 1882 by another Bombay resident who was a doctor and a landscape artist. So we thought he would propose this lake and then also paint it himself. 2013, the Shiv Sena releases this plan for the racecourse. It's for a theme park, actually. But what I love is there's a lake, right? Right in the middle of this theme park, right? The ideas just repeat, they keep stacking. And all of these speak to this similar idea that topography is an opportunity, all unbuilt. But picking on this idea, topography is an opportunity. It's not a burden. It's not something you have to win over, but it's an opportunity. Let's talk about sewage. I love sewage, drainage. If anyone here, I'm sorry we can't interact so much, but if you like sewage, great. This one's for you. Hector Tulloch, 1869, he comes up with this idea for an underground railway. It would have been just a few years after New York City first commissions its underground line, subway. And this is his idea from Fort, this area, to Jacob Circle, today what we know as South Rasta. He said there should be an underground line. This is how the scheme was described. Said during the day, passengers were to be ferried southwards into the city center, while at night, northbound carriages filled with the day's business, fecal matter, were to traverse the same tracks, right? I love this. It was a poop train, right? It was to be filled with poop. So in Bombay, we name the lines, right? Like all cities. I traveled on the Western Line for about a decade. There's the Central Line, Harbor Line. The Dream Line is new. Red Line is new. I think Tuluk's line would have been the brown line, right? And it might have had some kind of interesting logo, streak or something. Yeah. But his brown line didn't stop at Jacob's Circle. He extended his idea and said, what if from South Resta we take all that human waste and we take it to Chembur, to Kurla area, to this part of the island? And here's what he writes: lands on which the sewage might be utilized, right? Beautiful sewage irrigation. He says this in 1868: the present project is for utilizing the sewage proper and not for throwing it into the sea. Amazing. What an idea. And this is foundational principle. Sewage is a resource, right? It's not waste, it's a resource. This is Elephantine College in South Bombay. The first floor of this building is partly home to the Maharashtra State Archives. Millions of documents. Within these millions of documents are thousands upon thousands of drawings, old drawings, beautiful originals, handmade, which have not been touched in decades, many of them in hundreds of years, and they are just waiting to be discovered and enjoyed again. This is one such drawing. It was for the renovation of Cathedral Church, St. Thomas Church, and it was a Gothic renovation designed by James Troopshaw. Amazing drawings. And these you can go to the State Archives request and just fold these out in front of you. Just fabulous, fabulous drawings on vellum. His idea basically was to solve a comfort problem. The church was, everyone said it was very hot, and he added a veranda on the side to shade it, to create additional shading. And then in the very center of the roof, he introduced a new vent. So all the hot air would rise through the church, go out through this vent, and cool the space. And that was the essence, the core of this proposal, to naturally cool this space. And he caught on this principle that moving air cools, right? So basic but effective. Move north a bit, change scales. This is Dharavi area. We often hear Mahim Creek, but in 1920, this drawing called it Bandra Creek. Never heard that. It's fascinating. This was the first master plan for Dharavi. And the very center of the master plan was a park, right? What a lovely idea. A park for everyone. 20 years later, a new master plan on what's called the neighborhood unit principle. If you look at the very center of the master plan, there's this, a park, but also a library and public hall, right? Like almost utopian ideals. Then if you zoom out 3 years later, 1948, the first master plan for the entire city, prepared by Albert Mayer and N.V. Modak. And what did they put in the very center of the island? A 200-acre public park, right? 200-acre public park. Everyone who was to be displaced from this area was to be relocated on housing constructed on the race course, right? What a wild idea. But the Dharavi and the Mayor Master Plan and Modak Master Plan, they again they lean into this principle that social and green spaces are central, right? Beautiful. The last project we'll look at of the Unbuilt City is by, of course, Mr. Charles Correa. And it's for this area. It's known as Back Bay in Bombay, a yet incomplete reclamation project. In 1973, this was the government's plan to complete the reclamation. It was a number of grids, all filled in, lots of rectangles, squares, some might say unimaginative. And Correa says he comes with a counter proposal. And he says, no, we shouldn't complete the reclamation. We should use that form to our advantage, sculpt it, make it elegant, and then add a number of public amenities, a civic center, a planetarium, hospital, youth center, amphitheaters, right? And all overlooking the water, the incomplete bay. He described it like this: an event for the city, a new and unique waterfront, unprecedented in the contemporary Indian urban scene, right? Lovely. This was the section. There was to be boating, a promenade, shopping, parking, a restaurant, and then 2 and 3 bedroom units. But my favorite part of this proposal was this drawing, right? It's a really large, it's about A1 size. I've seen it in person. It's a blueprint. But this is what I love about it. There's a couple here with a toddler, maybe an elderly couple looking at the sea line. There's a loner here. This would be me just walking alone and enjoying like a very stylish, maybe group of college kids hanging out. But this is my favorite person, right? Look at that. When was the last time you saw an architectural rendering put into the public realm with someone who was just carefree, completely carefree, a tree behind them, the sky and ocean beyond? Um, this is what it means to live carefree, right? And architecture and drawing can enable that. But this grouping of people, right? This type of drawing, it tells us diversity is beautiful, right? Diversity is beautiful. So all of these projects, 200 projects condensed, we eventually managed to complete Bombay Imagined. It came out, I think, about 3 years ago. These are some images from the first edition. And fortunately, it sold out completely, as Kushru mentioned. And this is like a teaser of the cover for the second edition, hopefully coming out in the first week of December. Um, and this was it was a life-changing experience to discover the unbuilt city. So around the time the book is wrapping up, the pandemic's raging, right? It's intense, and we decide Tina, Kai, and I decide to come to Bangalore for a month to spend time with Tina's parents. This is Kai at this point. I think he was about 4. And that's Tina. And we're sitting one night on the ground in Bangalore, not far from where I'm sitting right now. And we're sitting together around this bonfire. And something happened. Our feet are on the ground, the fire's before us. I look at Tina and I say, this can be every day, every night of our life. And she just looked at me and said, absolutely. And we decided that night. We're going to move from Bombay. We're going to move to Bangalore. We're going to build a home. Um, and that was it. And one of the learnings was when you're in the presence of fire, be alert because fire has this transformative power, which we experience. We were very fortunate to experience. The next day, Tina's parents, first question they asked, what are you going to do about water? Right? What a question, right? The enabler of life, right? Which we learned from the birth. So, long story short, we started to dig a well. As Ramakrishna and his team started digging, which their ancestors have been doing for generations, the earth just opened and it just started pouring forth water. I had never seen something like this before. The earth is alive, it's deeply alive. And this is the well, it's completed. And this well changed our lives as well. We'll talk about it. We do this thing called walkthroughs of the space about once a month. We always begin at the well. And when we do, we stand there and people just stare into the abyss of water. And there's something about it, there's something very primordial about this experience of looking into the earth and seeing it provide that enabler of life, water. But I think, like Connie Bear, we discovered water is culture and infrastructure, right? It's not just one or the other. And that's why when we start here, everyone stares into it like an enigma almost. So we built the well, and then we started looking at the rest of the space. This wall originally was this exposed concrete textured plank wall. And after experiencing the well, we said no. We said, what if we replace the front curved RCC wall with stone like the well, right? An idea came from this well. And that's what we did. There are about 325 granite blocks and 105 glass blocks. This is from the outside. You can also see in my Zoom screen behind me. And this is the inside of the space. This wall exists the way it does because of Ramakrishna and his team, because of how a right relationship with the earth can give forth water and enable life. Each of these glass blocks is a work of art. Again, they're 105, each one's unique. They have cast glass, 2-inch thick cast glass at the ends. In the center are float glass. It's all laminated and then polished to a specific shape. This was the concept sketch for it, which eventually led to this. But what I love is this image. It's the first casting of the glass block, the cast piece, right? And remember that it has this feeling, no, like fire is transforming something into something else, right? So be very alert when we're in the presence of fire, transformation is happening. That space is behind where I'm sitting now is behind this door, which is it's a mirror door. It reflects the garden behind us. The entry to the house is up these steps, which means to enter the study where I'm sitting and working, you have to go down, you have to turn and open this door. And you can see the glass blocks in the reflection of that mirror door. And basically, what has happened is this: there's only one stair, and you must go outside, then turn and enter the study, right? And now, in reflection, this space is as much a home for Henry David Thoreau as it is for us, right? 22 years later. So water, the well, we developed this in this process of making and discovering the power of water. We develop a really close connection, and all of a sudden, water is part of our family in a way. It's an intimate part of our life, and therefore we don't want to just throw it away as if it's waste. So we say, what if we treat all of the water on site completely, in completely 100% natural ways? So we made a gray water treatment bed. We have a black water bioseptic tank. Both of these through natural systems treat water that's used in the house, and then it flows into this tank, 1,000-liter tank, which collects the water. This is what that space looks like today. Um, and this treated water is then used for irrigation throughout the landscape area, which is 90% of our site. And again, reflecting more 1 year later, and what we're learning is the Hector Tulloch principle, right? That sewage can be used for irrigation. It can be used for growth and for life. This is what the garden looks like today. It is extremely, extremely happy. Right? Sewage is a resource, right? It's a precious resource. This is our neighborhood, Krishnappa Garden, east of Bangalore, eastern part of Bangalore. And we're located right in the center of this neighborhood. And that night around the bonfire, we said we're going to build a home. It's also going to be an architecture studio, but on top of all of that, it's going to be a public library. We have about 1,000 books focused on cities of India. And we said we want to make this an accessible resource that people can come, can reference, can experience, and do so joyfully in the midst of a garden. And then reflection, right? This is the Dharavi principle, right? Right in the center, utopian ideal, the library is the center of a neighborhood. Now, I just want to be clear, we didn't look at Bombay Imagine and say, how can we do these in this house, right? All these ideas, they had been incubating, they had been seeping into like my spirit and to us as a family, and just slowly they found their way through a process of incubation. They found a way into this space that we now inhabit. This is my workspace, but it's also the Bombay part of the library. This is the other cities part, which is up the staircase. There's a whole section on Patrick Geddes, about 120 books on Geddes, who we heard about earlier with his reservoir. And the books also turn on the staircase to create the feeling of a room. Each book in the collection is cataloged, so you can visit this catalog online, maybe perhaps find what you want to explore in more depth. You can, book a time to come and then come and spend time with the books in the midst of what is essentially a sewage garden. So this ground floor is a very fluid space for that reason, that it's meant to have a mix of public and private activity. But all of this comes back to that idea that social and green spaces are central, right? That Dharavi principle, that master plan principle. As you go up through the space, the library takes you up and then it transitions to the living room on the right. This is Kai's bedroom. For anyone interested, he does offer his space for rent, 200 rupees a month, in case you want to come and research and sit here. But you have to deal with him directly in the finances. And then as you go up, this is the rest of the space. It's kind of like a cave, a shell that overlooks the garden on the right. But what you'll notice, there are no walls separating rooms, right? So air is fluid. The bookshelf is the center. The books are central, spilling out to every space. And because there are no walls, air flows, right? It's moving. Hot air is rising, and it's catching this principle that Trubshaw pushed for but never realized in the cathedral of hot air going out through a natural vent in the ceiling. So we have a vent with an exhaust fan, which you see here, and it churns all the air. Make sure that the air is moving whenever that fan is on with substantial speed. And this principle, right? Moving air cools, right? So again, simple but powerful. Now, about a year ago, we started doing walkthroughs, groups of like 15 to 20 people. And we did one, we did two. I thought interest would die down. We did three, and they just kept going. We've done 22 to date. And something like to know about us, like we are nobodies in Bangalore. If you ask anyone in Bangalore, have you heard of Robert Stevens or Tina Nandi? Apart from like five people, you will have never heard our name. And it's perplexing because given that fact, yet we have once a month a house full of people like really eager to discover this space. And then when they do, they tell their friends. I have a theory. I think when people come here and spend 3 hours with us and experience the different moments, effectively what they're interacting with is 300 years of the unbuilt city and utopian principles that are embedded in the unbuilt city, which have found fulfillment in some way, in some form, in this space. And I think that's a powerful experience. Um, the groups are diverse. We often have a lot of architects, a lot of designers, but also what I call normal people, non-designers, which is great. So a lot of IT professionals, people from corporate backgrounds, families, individuals. It's a big mix. Everyone brings themselves fully to this experience. I never see people looking at their phone when they're here. It's great. And this confirms this fact, diversity is beautiful, right? Right? It is beautiful. Now, the project is basically complete. And like architects often do, we finish a project and then start thinking about presentation drawings, right? If you want to have a project published, you have to give presentation drawings. So we were wondering, what do we do? We have architectural drawings, but now landscape is such a strong part of this project and it is growing with such a scale. How do you represent that? So one thought was maybe we copy Jeffrey Bawa, maybe we get some nice AutoCAD blocks from his drawings somehow. And then it didn't click. So then we looked deep within and said, what is my contribution as a unique individual to the drawing for this space? And then it clicked. I went back to ninth grade and we said, let's fuse the architectural drawing of 2025 with the blind contour of 1998, right? Let's bridge the 27-year gap between these two. So that's what we did. I would take images of each section of the garden, like little bit aerial images, and then I would come back to the studio where I am now and spend 15 minutes blind contour drawing exactly what I saw. Um, it took a lot of time because my attention span is now not strong. But slowly, slowly, after the course of about a month, this is the sewage treatment area. This is the well. After, this is the space where I'm sitting now, plus the Bombay reading room. And after a month, right, of little sections every day, this is what we had, right? It's fusing the architectural with the blind contour. But that was a plan. And then as we're experiencing the space, we're realizing the landscape has this incredible vertical scale also that's growing. Um, and then from our bedroom on the second floor, we look down and we see into the depths of the well, right? So from the highest point, we're seeing down to the lowest and we're experiencing this. So we said, yeah, the section drawing should also capture this vertical expanse of the earth, inside of the earth, coming into the experience of the house. During the making of the well, my colleague Yash was mindful enough to capture the layers of earth as we were excavating. This is what they look like. And I love this because it reminded me of Thoreau's house, right? We're seeing the layers of the earth below and thinking about how do those layers translate as an idea, as an experience up into the house through pigmented layers at the time. And so when we made this section, they said, yeah, let's take those Thoreau layers, right? Those well excavated layers, let's capture them, show the well, and of course also expand up with the rest of the house. This is the recharge well. It's located on the lowest point of the site, right? Because topography is an opportunity, right? It's not a burden. And this is a video from yesterday. It rained heavily. Uh, it is so satisfying. And when it rains, I just stand and watch the waterfall, right? The enabler of life. It's really, really fantastic. And then the south end of the site, there's this mango tree. So again, blind contour of the mango tree. You see it from the room within. This mango tree was planted by Tina's parents 15 years ago, and it's now enjoyed by their grandson, who's 9, on a day-to-day basis. And this is Kai, again. And I love the idea that he's born in water. Now he lives in trees, and he's constantly in touch with wood and light. Um, and he's just living a carefree life amidst the wonders of architecture and the experience of the natural world. And this posture, it reminds me, this idea of carefree living, which good architecture and an experience of the wonders of nature enables. So this person I love will end with this individual who actually never lived, but yet has this power to inspire us to imagine the type of world we want to live in. So I will close with this. Thank you all very, very much, and happy to chat and discuss uh, and talk more. Thank you. Hi, Kai. Just in time. Kai's joined us.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, most welcome. Do we want to do questions and chat for sure? So we didn't plan. It's about an hour, so people have things also.
A
Kai,
lot.
Kai's also here in case anyone wants to say anything to him.
Yeah, hi. So this is Sonal. I think I just want to say that I'm blown by your presentation and I love the way you connected right from the first till the end. There's a story that connected all through, even your first free contour drawing, and then how you connected it back to what you've built now. So many, many congratulations for that. Just loved the way the whole story is woven.
Thank you. Thank you so
I
much.
just have one question. What
Yeah.
is line contour drawing?
Yeah. So blind contour is the idea is you are looking at the object you're drawing, and you're not looking at the paper at all. That's the
Oh,
idea. It's blind. And
wow.
the intensity, the intense challenge is it's like you're developing muscles that coordinate what your eye sees and what your hand does. And so you're not drawing from memory. Often when we look at paper and draw, we're drawing what we remember from what we saw seconds or minutes ago. Blind contour, you're only looking at the object you're drawing, and your hand is moving simultaneously. So that's why now I can only do blind contour drawing for 15 minutes because
Wow.
it needs so much focus, and we live in a very focus challenge world now. Um,
Right.
but it's great fun because when you're doing it, your phone cannot be nearby. You cannot have a TV on or anything else on. It's a super, super laser focused exercise. I highly recommend everyone does it. Um,
Yes.
I'm trying
I'm
to
going to
build,
try. I'm
yeah,
going to
I'm
try.
trying
And
to build the practice back into my life more regularly. So yeah.
Yeah, and have to visit. Rahul and me will
Please
visit you
come.
soon.
Please
Yes.
come. Stay with us. This space is actually the guest room. So
Wow.
any of y'all are most welcome
Thank
to
you.
come and stay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Sonal. Very, very happy you're
Thanks.
here. Thank you. Thanks, Rajesh. I saw your note. Thank you. Very touched.
I would corroborate with what Sonal said. You know, the whole thread of um, from your initial drawings of your house for Thorough, and then that jar of silt. It just everything comes together, and it's really quite circular.
Mm.
And I think that um, that well is so amazingly beautiful.
Mm.
You know, with the garden around it, but just I mean, it's built by, you would say, people who are building infrastructure or are building something that's utilitarian, but actually it's so beautiful. And uh,
Mm.
when
Yeah.
you see older objects which we use in our kitchens, uh, which we, the mortar and pestle, whether
Mm.
it's in brass or whether it's in stone, the older objects are so well made, and they
Yeah.
they have that sense of weight, their sense of quality. They are curved in ways that you can grind something just the right way, and that is being lost. And in that sense, this well is one of those objects which still has that sort of older beauty, even though it's in that sense an everyday object of use.
Yeah.
Um,
So two comments on that. When the well was being made, Ramakrishna didn't once ask for a drawing because he knew what he was doing. There was no question. It was
uh-huh.
a time-tested um, work. And the second thing that happened after he finished making, I mean, I was blown away. I had never seen anything like this, which is, like you said, on one hand, it's beautiful, but the other hand, it's alive and it's living with the rhythms of the earth. And I just promised myself, I said, whatever we build after this, because the well was the first thing, whatever we build after this, it has to at least aspire to be as beautiful and moving as the well. Um, and that became the challenge. And I mean, that's, in a literal sense, why we changed the wall that's behind me to what it is. But it was just this more existential challenge that this is the standard all of the sudden, not the masters, but which we learn a lot from, but Ramakrishna's work became the standard. So, yeah, Siddhi has said some.
And you couldn't do with just one, so you made two. So what's the second one for?
So there are two reasons for this. Thanks, Kusher. I love it. Do you know the answer to this? No.
No, I don't.
Okay. So, okay, yeah. So there are two answers.
I remember while visiting that there are two wells, and then I saw it in the drawing, but
Yeah,
I forgot that there were two. Only when I
yeah,
saw
yeah,
the
yeah.
drawing that I realized that there
So,
are two.
so the big well, the first one is water supply. So we have no BBMP supply. We have no municipal supply, no bore well. Every drop of water we use in life comes from this well. So it's like it's like sacred in that sense. Conceptually, but also literally, we have to keep it pure. So, um, so no chemicals, but also rainwater that falls and hits the top layer of the well. Those stones are sloped outside. Okay, so all that water that falls away from the well. We never have water going in because that can cause a little more impurity. The other well, the small one, so think of the first as supply, right? That's enabling life. The second one is rainwater collection. That's the well that says topography is an opportunity, right? It's the lowest point of the site. It's also the northeast corner for any Vastu people. I like Vastu a little bit. Um, uh, but because it's the lowest point, it's collecting rainwater. It also collects impurities. It collects a little silt. When it rains super heavily, after like a break, it'll often be a little red if some mitti gets into it. Um, so that's the second reason, it's rainwater collection. So anytime there's rain, not one drop leaves our property. It is soaking straight into the earth. And that's I think that's also part of the reason why the garden is just so alive. In addition to the nutrients from the sewage, it's flush with water. The second reason, so that's the technical, like the objective reason for the second well. The more personal reason is when the main supply well was being made, I was not here. I was in Bombay, and my colleague Yash was having all the fun. He's seeing this built, he's making sketches, sending me photos and videos. And I said, I want to see a well being built also. So the recharge well I saw in person, and it was just as moving as I thought it would be. It's a sacred activity, the construction of wells in the earth. Yeah.
Hi, Robert.
I
Yeah, I just wanted to ask. Uh, so, do you also sketch before you build anything? Like,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
yeah. So,
Who
are
is
there
this?
Disha?
Nisha, okay, I thought it sounded like you. Yeah. Okay. So everything in this space that's built begins with a sketch of some sort. Uh, Begins with a sketch, goes into like technical drawings, and on average, everything that's built has at least 5 iterations in those technical drawing stages, sometimes somewhat substantial before it's actually built. So there's this long, very clumsy process at times, a lot of trial and error, generally more error than trial. Um, but it always, I think because of the blind contour experience and just that kind of training, I think best when I use my hands to draw. Even if it's sometimes using my hands on a phone to draw inputs, I find that effective also. There's something about our fingers, and I'm learning a little bit about it right now with electricity and connection with our brain and electricity and our nerves. But there's something powerful about the hand being used that I think is, for me, it's very critical. Yeah. Mhm. Small side note, Disha and Mansa are here right now. They're working on a really beautiful package of as-built drawings for this space, which I'm excited. Once they're done, I'm excited for others to see, because yeah, it'll be special.
So I think I want to add Robert is sitting on the ground floor. We are here on the first floor. We can see the landscape. And I think Tina is sitting in the bedroom, the second floor. So there's everybody, and the space is getting very well used in the sections, if you see.
It is, yeah.
Also, one more coincidence when Robert just mentioned about Kai being carefree and the picture. Kai just entered here, and we were like, I was gasping, like, wow, what a coincidence again. It was meant to be.
Yeah. Questions can be directed at Kai also, huh? For some reason, he's engaging with this call, which is not terribly common. So if anyone wants to ask Kai a question, feel free. He gives very honest answers, not like architects. Sometimes we little bit like fudge things and make it all sound good. He'll give the real answer. I'm partly joking. Great.
Any last comments from anyone? I wanted to say that so my sister studied at Elphinstone College, for many years, for a few years. And
Yeah.
I've passed that building many times and sometimes gone inside. I didn't know that the archives was there.
Yeah,
And maybe one time when you're in Bombay, we should go together, and I'd love to
definitely.
see it.
And I'll plant this idea as the last thing, especially for the architects here. think about how much effort we put into drawings, right? And then imagine those drawings become physical objects and then get buried in a file for 200 years. Like just imagine the idea that in 200 years, someone will then discover what you drew, and they'll be discovering your ideas, your values. There's just something, to me, something really powerful about that. So be prepared, Kushu, when we go. Like those types of moments are possible of discovering 200-year-old, 150-year-old values that have just been sleeping and waiting to be found afresh. This is very exciting. Anyone else is welcome to join us also in Bombay if you're there.
We would
And
love
Robert,
to join.
what's the plan for the new edition? Are they going to be? Is it just a reprint, or are we going to have some new projects in
Thanks.
there?
Yeah. So second edition Bombay Imagined, we're adding one project, which it's a project I actually worked on just earlier this year. So that's the last project in the book. There were 4 errors, grammatical errors in the first edition. So those are being corrected. Fortunately, there's not one person in the world that knows all the errors. We have few people know this one, few people know this one, but nobody knows all of them. So that's being fixed. And yeah, we're introducing this space in the bio because it's now part of the journey of Bombay Imagined. So yeah, that's it. And it's paperback, so it's user friendly. The first edition is very heavy, beautiful, but pretty much like anything architects make impractical. The paperback is much more user friendly. You can bend it, you can carry it somewhere. It's half the weight because the paper's thinner, and it will be a little bit cheaper as well. So trying to make it more accessible in many ways. Yeah.
Great, Robert.
Great.
Looking forward.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to seeing it.
Thanks
Thanks
everyone.
again. Thank you all for
Okay,
joining.
one last question, Kushru. One last question. This is Sonal again.
Yeah.
So, Robert, what do you think is if I mean it's something that is just obvious, but I still want to ask that
Yeah.
raising Kai in this home versus Mumbai apartment, what do you think are two biggest things that you could think of that are
Oh.
so different for him?
Oh man, I will start with actually the opposite answer. The challenge that's consistent is the impact the digital has on the human mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a beautiful space with trees, with wood, the pull of the iPad is a consistent challenge. And I think it's something we all face, whether it's a phone or an iPad for a younger child. So I think that's a consistent struggle. So the first answer to that is there's no easy answer to that challenge. I wish Tina, is Kai there? No, I wish he would answer this.
Tina could.
Yeah. Tina,
Sorry, Kai messed with my headphones and I didn't actually hear the question. No, I can hear. Now I can.
Sono, are you okay asking?
Yeah. So Tina, my question to Robert was like, it's very obvious, but still I would like to know how different would it be to raise Kai in a Bombay apartment versus where you all are bringing him up in this beautiful space?
Oh, it's Kai.
Kai, do you want to say something, Kai?
Hi, wait. It's I don't know, it's the difference between light and day, I think.
Yes, I know.
There's many things. It's also we're much closer to family. My parents live right next door, and I have cousins in the neighborhood, and Kai has cousins in the neighborhood. And yeah, and I think the other aspects of just being, amongst nature and uh, having this garden, I I I hope that they're subconsciously affecting Kai.
I'm
He's
sure.
not
I'm sure.
He's not actively, he doesn't talk about it, but
I think 25 years later, when he makes his
Yeah.
presentations, I'll see the
yeah,
connection.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of these things that's what I'm learning now, like in reflection. They just have long time scales. And that's okay. So it's this exposure, and hopefully it incubates in each of our lives in different ways. And then helps us become who we can be individually. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks again, Kushu, for initiating this. Yeah, great fun. See you soon.
Thanks, Robert, for doing this,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
hope to see you at the upcoming talks whenever they are. I'll
I
post
will.
them online, and
I will be
hope to
there.
see all of you there.
Yeah, I will be there for sure. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks again.
Thanks,
Bye.
Robert.
Catch up soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.